All right, so we're going to take a look at how to use the calculators. I know this isn't the best option, but it'll have to do. So just to make sure you understand how we use these calculators for stats. So first thing we need to do is from the home screen, whether we're using the direction pad, hitting the numbers, we need to start a new document, okay? Or using the touchpad here, like I'm using the mouse. So new document, we need lists and spreadsheets, okay? And we're going to hit Control here, and you'll see that the buttons I'm pressing turn red. That means I pressed them. Then press Doc. We're going to add data and statistics, okay? Now the first thing we're going to look at is just single variable information. So we'll just choose some data that I have, which will say tardy, okay? And then we enter in our data. And I'm just making these numbers up, though in a class there could be a lot like this. Okay, and we'll put in, let's say we'll put in 20 items. Okay, so the first thing I can do with this single thread of data is we can figure out the mean and the median. The mode we can't do from this, you'll have to do that by hand. But if we go Menu, Statistics, Stat Calculations, we want one variable statistics because we're dealing with one variable. So I click on that, I have one list. If you had multiple lists of single variable, you could change that list and do it all at the same time. Hit OK, then I choose this. If I press to the right twice, then I can press down, click on that, hit Enter, and I have my data. Then Tab will take me to these. This will just tell me which column to start the results in. I don't want it to overlap data, so I put it on one that doesn't have data in. Hit OK. And then we've got our single variable. Now the main stuff, this gives us a lot of more information than we need. What we mainly need is this, which is the mean or the average. So my average was 4.65 tardies. Then if we go down, this other stuff deals, we have 20 things. Okay, the minimum number was 0. Our first quartile, 1.5 in box and whiskers, that's very helpful. Our median, 3.5, another number we need. Third quartile, 6.5, and our maximum number. Okay, so that can give us some data right there. Sometimes that's all we need. Other times we need the actual graph. So we go back to that data and statistics, then I click down here, and I'm going to add a tardy. Okay, I add the variable. I don't add any other variables because I'm only doing single variable. Okay, there's a dot plot. That's where it starts out first, and it has all my numbers. Now, this 20 looks like it could be an outlier, doesn't it? Okay, but the dot plot doesn't necessarily tell me if it is or not. Okay, it could also tell me my mode, right? Because these are all 2. Sometimes you'll have numbers in between here, so you've got to be careful for that. So a mode of 2. Okay, but if I go Menu, then we can analyze. Okay. And that's more for scatter plots. So we want to go to plot type and we want to change it to a histogram. Okay, so the histogram then puts them in categories. See, from points 2 to 4, there's 5 of them. So the histogram can kind of help us with the mode, but not so much. Okay, once again, we see this skewed to the right because all the data's here at the left. Oops, and I just accidentally changed that. Okay, you can go over there and grab that to change those if you really wanted to. I try not to most of the time. Okay. If I really needed to change these to match a graph that I'm looking at, I haven't figured out how to do that. I know if I right click, I can go to this bin settings and do equal bin length and change the width of how long, so I could make it, like 5, hit OK, and then that changes it to bigger categories. But on the calculator, you can't really right click. So it's a little bit more difficult to do. I tried all sorts of ways of clicking somewhere, hitting Control, hitting Menu, and I never could figure out how to get there. Maybe Tab. No, Tab won't work. Control Shift. So I've tried to figure it out, but I haven't quite got it down. And I could never find maybe settings. Nope. Could never quite figure out how to get it to work like that. Maybe if I just hit doc. Okay, that doesn't really help me either, does it? So not quite sure how we can configure that one out, on how we do that when we want to right click. So if I figure that out, I'll let you know. Maybe if I hit control down, nope. So anyway, I just know on my computer I can right click, but I don't know how to do that from not doing that. So let's hit menu, plot type, plot properties maybe. Let's see, even that won't show it to me. Actions, analyze, window settings, no, and the other settings we already figured out didn't work for us. So not sure how we can adjust that, so you'll just kind of have to pay attention to those numbers, because if they're different on something that you're looking at, you may need to try to adjust those. Okay? So, but we can go menu, plot type, and do a box plot. That's a box and whisker. Okay? Now, if we hover over, we can see our low number, our first quartile, our median, our third quartile, our higher number, which can be helpful. And if you see a dot like this, that tells us it's an outlier. So this box and whisker is a great one to look at to tell if we have an outlier. I prefer to use that one a lot. Okay? And that's pretty much the main things we deal with when we're looking at a one variable statistics. Okay? So now let's say we wanted to add in something more. Now if I press up from here, I can delete the whole thing. Okay, now let's say we've got two variables going on here. So we're going to say tardies, and we're also going to say attendance. Actually, let's pretend and do grade. Let's say we wanted to compare the number of tardies and the grade students earned. Okay, so then we type in our numbers, right? And we'd have a table or something here to match this up. And there's a bell. Actually need to make these look like percents, don't I? Okay, so then we type in our grades, and I'm going to type them in with my keyboard because it's a lot quicker, so we can get moving. You don't need to see me typing stuff in. We should probably have some students doing a little bit better in our class, huh? Like I said, this is all random, so okay. So now we've got two variables here, right? So with two variables, we can find out a few things about them. The first thing we could do is we could hit menu, go to statistics, stat calculations again, and we could say instead of one, now we've got two variables, let's do two variable statistics. So I tell it my X, we said, was tardies. My Y was the grade. Okay, there's just one list. If we had more lists, we could probably do them together. Results, we can have it in D, or since I just used A and B, sometimes I like to change that to C. Then we hit OK here. Okay, now once again, we've got our X, so it kind of takes care of that single variable stuff too. So I've got my X mean, all my X information, okay, some standard deviations, and I've got my Y mean, so this would be for grades, okay. 72.9 was our average grade. Okay, go down, keep going down. I've got min for X's, medians, maximums, mins for Y's, first, third quartiles, medians for Y's, all that information. And one other that I have that I didn't have with single variable is a very important one for our scatter plots. That's this guy. This is our correlational coefficient. And remember, we look at the decimal. If it's close to -1 or close to +1, that means it's got a strong positive or negative correlation. If it's closer to 0, it's getting closer to no correlation or a weak correlation. Okay, so we can find the R variable that way. There's another way we can do this as well. So let me delete this. Okay, so if I go back here and hit menu, once again statistics, stat calculations. Now if I know I'm going to do a linear regression, that's a linear line of best fit, I can click on that and I would choose the lists again. Hit OK. And now it actually gives me just some other information. Okay, has my equation as mx plus b, slope-intercept form. There's my slope. There's my y-intercept for my line of best fit, and there's my R value again. Okay, so that's another option that you can use if you just want that R value. Gives you a little less information, I guess. Okay, we could also do it. Let's say that instead of a linear regression, it was more of an exponential. Okay, so we could do the same thing for exponential. So we've got our tardy was our x, grade was our y. Hit OK. Okay, and it does the same thing, and it does a times b to the x. That little caret key over here, that's what makes exponents. Okay, so our starting number there would be 110. Obviously, I'm doing this during my prep period, which is during first lunch, and that bell, as you can hear, is very annoying. So there's my slope. We're timesing by 0.89 if this were exponential. R squared, we don't really care about that one right now. And our R value. Okay, notice it's different because we're dealing with a different line of best fit, so that correlational coefficient is slightly different. With a higher one, so maybe that means that our exponential would be better. Okay, so a few different things you can do with that scatter plot. We can also just go and actually graph the scatter plot. So we would need to add our second variable. Okay, so now we see our scatter plot. Now it's not very, it's hard to see kind of, right? But it does look like it's going in that negative direction. It's fairly close together if we consider all the possibilities, right? Between 60 and 90. Now, if we wanted to check a line of best fit that somebody gave us, we can hit menu, go to analyze, and we can say plot function. Okay, and then we've got our function, and then we could type it in, you know, like f of x equals, maybe somebody said, well, negative 2x. Oh, did I click off? Oops. Let's try that again. So, analyze, plot function. So I can go let's see, negative, right? Negative 2x plus 100. Hit enter. Okay, and there's our line. Is that a good line of best fit? Doesn't really look to be very good, does it? And I can go menu, analyze, residual, do a show residual plot, and then we can judge. Most of it's below the line. Okay, that's not a random pattern. That's not good. So I can go menu, analyze. We can remove that plotted function. Now, I could go menu, analyze, and do add movable line. And I could try to say, okay, what if I were to guess here? So if we go to the edges, we can move it there. If we go to the middle, we can move it up and down. And maybe I wanted to say right here. And then maybe that would be my equation. Okay? Then I can hit menu, once again, use that residual plot to check it. Okay, that's better. Okay, but menu, we can go remove movable line, because I want the calculator to do all the work for me. So if I go menu, analyze, then we can go regression, and I can do that linear. Okay, there's the best linear it could come up with. So if we go menu, we can double check, is linear going to work here? Okay, now I look at that, that's pretty random, so that's pretty good. Okay, I can also say, well, let's see, what if we tried a different type, like an exponential? Okay, so I can toggle between the two different lines and see which one I like better based off of that residual plot. Okay, and that's the main stuff we use for our scatter plots. Okay? And that's how we do all that kind of stuff. Then if we're trying to use those equations to say something, I can hit Control Doc, add a calculator, type in the equation I have, you know, and go like 3.5 times 12 plus the y-intercept 2.56, you know, do whatever I need to do to get that stuff going. Okay? So there's the basics of how we use the calculator for single and two variable scatter plots, histograms, box plots, and box and whisker plots. Hopefully this helps you see a little bit better how we did all that stuff and helps you when you're getting ready to use this for the homework, for the test, for anything that you need to do. All right? So, the only thing that we couldn't figure out was how to, with a single variable histogram, how we're able to change that. So I'm going to play around with that. You can pretty much stop watching if you want to. But I'm going to see if there's something I can do to get that. That bothers me that I can't figure it out on the calculator. So document, none of that. Page sorter. Huh. Some interesting stuff, but nothing that's helping me. Oh, don't hit the press to test. I hate that. Takes away some functionality and is difficult to get rid of. I wonder, what if we hit Control click? That doesn't work. Oops. Oops. Oh crap. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's just add this again then. We hold it down. Hit enter. See, we don't want to add a variable. I'm not sure how we get to that. That really annoys me. I guess that's one way to do it. So I can grab that, make that smaller or bigger. Now if I hover over, it's like 56.7 to 60. So if I make that appear, that would be 60 to 110. So 60 to about that's tough to figure out, but it looks like you can adjust them that way. So anyway, that's probably the best we can come up with. So hopefully that helped, and there you go.